Hello and welcome to How I Built This Resilience Edition. This is where we talk with entrepreneurs about the creative ways they're coping with the economic slowdown. In the window next to me is Songe LaRon, co-founder of the app Squire. Hello, Songe.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Squire, if you don't know, is a booking and payment platform. It connects people with a barber or a hairstylist. The company was launched just 5 years ago, and it's now raised more than $40 million from investors. Songe, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And just a reminder, if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, we are taking your questions. We love getting your questions. It's the only time I get to ask your questions, because when I'm doing the podcast, I'm in a studio and none of you are there. I'm just interviewing the person. And so this is where I get to ask your questions. So please keep them coming. First of all, Songe, you're in New York. You've been in New York this whole time during this COVID crisis. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I've adjusted and had to adapt, like I think the whole world has, to this kind of unexpected new reality. But New Yorkers are very resilient, and you're seeing that people are cautiously optimistic, I think, now in New York, because the numbers are trending down, and we're all kind of hoping that continues. But I think, like everybody, just taking it day by day.
Yeah. So I mentioned a little bit about Squire. For people who don't know the app, tell us more about it.
Yeah, so Squire is a business management and point of sale software focusing on barbershops. So we do essentially everything that a barbershop needs to run their business, from handling the booking interface to the back end, point of sale, inventory. It's a full end-to-end system, and it's really customized specifically for the barbershop industry. And then on the consumer side, as a client, you can actually find a barbershop, book, pay, and tip, all in the app or on the website.
So it's a little bit like ZocDoc for barbershops. You know ZocDoc?
Yeah. You could say that.
Yeah. And what's the business model? How do you guys make money through the business?
From a few different ways, but the main ways from handling the payment processing. So that's really core to our business. There's a subscription component. So the shops that use our platform will pay $100 to $250 a month. And then there's a customer booking fee. So if you book and pay on Squire, you'll pay about $1 extra.
Right.
So and that revenue goes to Squire.
And I mean, most people don't know this, but like a lot of barbers are independent contractors. You may go to a barbershop and they may have a chair there, but they actually are their own business, right?
Yeah. So there's two central models for barbershop business models. One is what you mentioned, which we call kind of the booth rental model, where each barber is essentially an independent contractor. They run their own business, they manage their own schedule, they go and come as they please, and then they pay rent to the owner, usually on a weekly basis. And then the other model is what we call a commission model, where those barbers are treated a little bit more like employees. They have certain hours that they come, and in that case, they split the percentage of the transaction with the shop. Usually it'll be 60-40 or 50-50, and the owner will get a piece of every transaction.
Right. You co-founded this with your friend Dave Salvant 5 years ago. Tell me how you guys had the idea. I mean, just for some background for people who don't know you, you studied philosophy as an undergraduate, and then you went and got a law degree, and then worked in I think in the tech sector for a couple of years. And Dave was an old friend, I guess. How did you guys come up with this idea?
Yeah, so I actually, prior to founding Squire, I didn't work in the tech sector. I was at a corporate law firm doing corporate M&A, finance type stuff. And Dave was actually in business school. And both of us wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, didn't want to go the corporate route. So we would just brainstorm ideas on the weekend. And we eventually stumbled on the idea of barbershops, and the idea came out of our own experience. Having gone to barbershops for decades, like most people, I started going with my dad as a kid around 6 or 7. And this was about 2 decades later, and the experience of going to the barbershop hadn't changed. It was essentially still the same. Very antiquated, low tech industry, cash based. Need to call to make an appointment, long wait times. So all of those pain points that we had experienced formed the basis of why we came up with the idea of this is something that we wanted to work on.
Yeah. And just a reminder, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter, please keep your questions coming for Songe LaRon. We'd love to get them. Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this before we went live about like my barbershop. They don't take appointments. You have to get there when the doors open at 8:30, and they have a chalkboard, and there's usually a line, and it's cash only. It's $35, and you can get there at 8:30. And you might only get an appointment at like 11:45. And some days I'll like ride my bike down there at 8:30, and then they only have an appointment at a time where I have a live interview, and I can't get an appointment. I can't get a haircut. But you're basically that's been the model for forever and ever for most barbershops.
Yeah. So and that's what we're solving, because that's not really an ideal experience for you as a customer, and it's not a good experience for the barbers either. In terms of efficiently running their business. But getting a haircut is such a great experience, and it's such an important part of your life that you're willing to go through that poor customer experience to get the service. But we think that we can make it better than that. So
how have you how do you approach barbershops? I mean, I have to imagine there are a lot of barbershops that are like, no way, I don't want to give up my cash, or I don't want to give up, percentage of my business or percentage of my income. I mean, it's right. I mean, presumably you get some pushback from potential customers. So how do you make the case for people to sign up?
Yeah, I mean, the sell to them is that this is going to make their lives easier. This is going to save them time, and this is actually going to enable them to be better business owners and make more money. And we can show them that that's what the software actually does. Early on, we did get more pushback from cash only shops. So our focus was more on shops that are already taking cards, but that's really the trend just in the world generally. Consumers are used to paying for services with cards. So the shops that are cash only, there will be some segment that just doesn't want to pay taxes, quite frankly. But we're seeing more and more, particularly the newer shops that are opening, they understand that if they want to meet their consumers and provide a really great experience to their clients, that they have to kind of accept cards, and it enables them to charge more. We know that it says people will pay more on card versus cash. And if you want to charge $30 a haircut, $40 a haircut, as is the case in many cities, it just makes sense.
I should mention that you are actually in an office of a barbershop right now in Connecticut, which you can hear a little bit of it behind you.
Can you hear it?
No, that's fine. That's fine. So first of all, are barbershops in Connecticut open?
Yes, they are. They are open. I think Connecticut is probably phase 3 or whatever the phase is where barbershops and other service-based businesses are open. So yeah, they're open for business.
And what's the protocol in there? Are the barbers wearing masks and the customers wearing masks?
Barbers wear masks, customers wear masks. There's no waiting in the barbershop anymore. So customers will have to wait outside or in their car until their appointment time is ready. And there's also social distancing between chairs. So that they spread out the shares so that they're servicing less, fewer customers as a result. Yeah, but barbers, I would say that barbers are probably one of the few types of professionals that are very well equipped in this new environment, because they actually go to school for this. In order to get a barber license, you have to study, disinfecting and taking different precautions. So unlike maybe waiters or other types of people who are providing services, I think barbers are one of the few that actually already had to get licensed and go through education, to be prepared for this environment. So yeah. I'm a big proponent of barbershops reopening.
Yeah.
Needless to say.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, before we went live, I'm in California, and now barbershops are closed in most of the state. I'm in Alameda County. They've been closed for most of the last, I don't know how many months we've been in this now. And I have to be honest, like I'm still nervous I would still be nervous about going. You know, I've given myself 2 very bad haircuts over the last 6 months with clippers, and my kids too. But when you go now to a barbershop where it's open, when people are taking precautions, what are they doing? Everyone's wearing a mask, but are they disinfecting the seats between customers and,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, the disinfecting. I mean, they already have to disinfect tools between every cut. They should be doing that. But now they're also disinfecting the seating area. Many of them are using disposable barber capes, or they're using just one per customer, so they'll have a supply ready, so they're not reusing the capes.
Yep.
And they're taking precautions. A lot of them are not doing certain services, like they won't do beard work, or they won't do shaves, anything that would require the client to remove their mask. And I think that there hasn't been a lot of evidence of barbershops being one of the high transmission services.
Yeah.
So but with anything, there's risks. There's risks.
Yeah.
Walk outside any day, and there's going to be some risk involved, and it's just a matter of the balance of how much you want that service. So it makes sense. If you don't feel getting a haircut. Yeah.
There was this article, you probably saw it a couple of days ago, of a hair salon where 2 of the stylists were tested positive for COVID, but none of the more than 130 customers that went in that, over the course of the few days, tested positive. Everybody was wearing masks, and it sort of suggests that masks really do work.
Masks really do work. Yeah. If we could only, if there's one thing I wish everyone could kind of agree on, I think that, we get masks work.
Yeah. Can we just say that right now? All of those people who were on the hike that I went on over the weekend, who were not wearing masks when you passed by me on the trail that was this wide, please wear a mask.
Please.
Yeah. Everybody, please wear a mask. I can wear one right now, but I'm in a studio by myself.
Right. Yeah.
All right, let's talk brass tacks here, Songe. We are in the middle of an economic crisis. We've had heads of airlines and huge fashion companies and, titans of industry on the show talking about how their businesses are really collapsing around them, and also some of the creative ways they're trying to keep them afloat. I have to imagine that bookings are significantly down. I mean, just because there's so many states, you can't go to a barbershop.
Yeah, so bookings definitely took a dip when the shutdowns started. March, April, our revenue essentially went to zero. And we also decided to waive all of our subscription charges to current and new customers until October, because we knew that their revenue was also going to go to zero. We didn't want them to have that overhead. So as a result, we expected the Squire essentially wouldn't be making any money, but we were okay with that because this is just, such a difficult time. What we have seen though is that as our customers are reopening, they are getting booked out. They're getting booked out relatively fast, and then their bookings are continuing to stay, to stay consistent. And I think that that just kind of speaks to how much of a need there was, like a pent up demand from their clients to get haircuts, and I think that there's something about just the barbershop experience and the community element of it that people, men in particular, really look forward to that normalcy and to being able to get a haircut and feel great about themselves, and and kind of go back to in this one area, feel the way they were before COVID. So we're actually seeing it for the shops that are reopening higher than usual bookings, and we'll see how that trend continues in the months to come. So far, that's what we're seeing.
I'm not surprising because everybody needs a haircut. It's like once things get back to some kind of normalcy, I think everyone's going to, and they feel safe, people are going to want to go to sports games and live events. But so it's not surprising. There's something I read that you had said about barbershops. You called them a fail-proof service, which I think is right. I think you said, look, they bring in roughly half the population that needs grooming, and but this pandemic, which nobody predicted and nobody anticipated, has shown that nothing is fail-proof, right? I mean, that everything can fail, even the most resilient ideas. So how have the past few months kind of made you rethink your business model?
It's made me understand that you can never predict the future. There's always going to be an unknown. To your point, we always thought that a recession was coming at some point.
Right.
The gravy train can't go on forever. We knew that the economy at some point would slow down. And I always thought that our business would fare relatively well in a downturn, because people will continue to get haircuts, and we've seen this in the past, that these type of services tend to remain consistent in downturns. I mean, this is a total black swan event. I never would have predicted a pandemic at scale. But I think that if anything, this has made me believe that our business is even more resilient than I thought before. Just seeing how we've been able to kind of adapt to the reality and make changes on the fly, push features that we know our customers need during this time, that would help them, during this difficult time. And as a result, what we've seen in the last 2 months, actually more inbound and more customers signing up than we ever have in the life of the company.
Songe, I know you guys had a round that you raised more than $30 million during this crisis. First of all, congratulations on that. But I have to imagine that you're trying to keep your cash balance sheet relatively strong, and probably are cutting costs and trying to be fairly careful about how you spend cash in case this lasts a long time, right? You need that cash to last to get you through this economic crisis.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. We try to look at the different possible scenarios, and you can never know for sure. But when we model out, make our projections, we kind of have like a worst case, base case, and a best case scenario in terms of the impact of COVID and how long it will last. And when we started seeing states reopening, it was a positive sign, because our revenue started rebounding relatively quickly. In fact, it exceeded in May and June exceeded pre-COVID numbers, just because of all the new business that we're bringing on. So that kind of showed, okay, things are trending towards best case, and we can adjust accordingly and adjust our spending accordingly. And then now we're seeing states closing again, which we didn't really expect. Like California is reclosed. So it just goes to show you can never really know, but it's always safe to us kind of assume the worst case and be prepared for the worst case, which we were prepared to go to zero revenue for over 12 months.
Wow.
I thought that was in the realm of possibility.
Wow. We're getting a bunch of questions on Facebook from our audience. A lot of people are entrepreneurs. They're freaking out. They're looking for ideas and ways to keep their businesses resilient. I want to ask you a question from Dante Richardson. Hello, Dante. Thank you for the shout out on Instagram, by the way. Dante asks, what are some principles that you've discovered and executed over the course of your entrepreneurial journey that have contributed to your success?
One of the principles is, I believe, in bringing the best people into your team, and really looking for people that can complement your skill set and are better than you at what they do. And as an employee, if you're an employee at a big company, a big corporation, you want to be the smartest guy or girl in the room. You want to excel over other employees so that you can kind of move up the ranks, and that's how you'll be successful. As a founder, you do not want to be the smartest person in the room. You want people in the room who are way better than you at what they do, so that collectively you can make the company excel, and that will, in turn, make you successful as a founder. So kind of like a successful founder is only as successful as the people that they bring in. And that's something that a principle that I think has really been important. And also, I believe in I don't believe in micromanaging. I believe in bringing people in and giving them room, to make mistakes and also to excel, to learn from those mistakes. If you have to micromanage the people that you hire, you probably hired the wrong person. So those are just two things off the top that I think are worthwhile.
I'm going to go to another question from our audience. This is from Claire Murashima. Hello, Claire. Thank you for being a loyal viewer. Claire asks, it's a question that I had too, which is, how have you kept your professional relationships during this time? I mean, with your team, with your co-founder, who's like one of your best friends, who's across the country in LA. Have you been doing that and making sure that you keep morale up?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is it's been a challenge to keep those relationships remotely. I mean, we have had a little bit of an advantage because we were already somewhat distributed before. So we sorry, somebody's just jumping.
No, that's fine. It's a working barbershop.
Yeah,
of course.
Because we were somewhat distributed. So, we had an office in Buffalo, New York City. Our engineering team was all spread out. Our sales team was all spread out. So we were already used to collaborating on Zoom, and communicating on Slack. But this took it to a whole new level because there's no physical presence anymore. So we try to do things like incorporate, social activities virtually. So we'll do like a virtual happy hour where everybody will bring their beverage of choice, and we'll all just kind of talk and drink and not even talk about business. Things like that help. It's never a replacement for the physical one-to-one interaction, but it does help.
Yeah. I want to ask you about. I mean, you and Dave are Black co-founders in a tech industry that is, that vastly sort of overrepresented by white and Asian men. And you've written about this and tweeted about this. And I wonder whether you think now is actually a good time. I mean, as you probably know, Songe, we've talked about on the show, Black entrepreneurship in America has declined over the last 30 years. Also, entrepreneurship full stop has. I mean, there were more Black-owned banks in the 80s and insurance companies in the 80s than there are today. If you were talking to like a young, a college graduate Black man or woman, and they were like, "Hey, should I become an entrepreneur today?" Would you say now is a good time to start a business in this uncertain economic environment?
That's a tough question. It's a good question. I do think that the tides are changing, especially recently, with increased attention to the plight of Black founders and Black people in general. So I think that now is probably a better time than ever to be an entrepreneur, a Black entrepreneur. That being said, it's still going to be challenging to be an entrepreneur, period. Let alone a Black entrepreneur. The odds are kind of against you, to be frank. So I would encourage them that if entrepreneurship is their dream and if that's really kind of what they see themselves doing, then they have to pursue it. But I always encourage people to take a risk, but measured risks. So if you're at a big company and you're making a decent salary, save as much personal runway as you can before making the leap. Understand that you may go 6 months to 12 months with little to no income, and just know what you're getting yourself into. But I do believe that entrepreneurship, particularly in tech, provides an opportunity for wealth creation that is in a short period of time that is really unparalleled in most other industries. And you know, it's I believe in it. I believe in entrepreneurship. You know, clearly that's what I've committed my life to. So I would never tell somebody to not pursue it, but it is risky, particularly now. Yeah.
You and Dave really launched your company after or sort of before, but really were able to launch it with a grant that you received after entering into an entrepreneurship contest in Buffalo, New York. You got like a bit more than $600,000 to launch the company. That was, several years ago. Has it been difficult over the years for the two of you to raise money?
It's been difficult. So that company is called 43 North, and it actually wasn't a grant. It was an investment.
Investment, okay.
Yeah, it was an investment of $650,000 because we won the.
So that's an equity investment in your company.
It was an equity, yeah. It was actually structured. The structured as a warrant that converted to equity when we raised a price round. But prior to that, we had raised an angel and seed round, and raising money is not easy, particularly at first. As a first-time entrepreneur, as somebody who doesn't have a track record of in tech, and we didn't have the network at that point. It was challenging. We were fortunate, both my co-founder and I, to have a pretty decent network of professionals in New York City from like law, finance, and other kind of like high-paying industries. And we actually were able to get, and many of them are African American. We were able to get some of our early like friends, no family, just friends around, friends and / angel startup capital that helped us get to the next level. But for us, fundraising, until we raised the Series A and Series B, it was always a real kind of like just a grind. Get one check and just it'll take us a couple months and then go out and try to get another. We never really stopped fundraising. It was a constant thing that we were doing to keep the business afloat. And quite a few times, we came close to 1 month of runway. So yeah.
Wow. How I mean, you're running a business, you've got a staff of 60, you've got to show up and inspire people and be their leader, and but also like you are a human, and you were in New York in the midst of mass demonstrations against racial injustice, which I can't imagine was an incredibly emotional time for you, and probably some people on your team. How did you guys navigate that and cope with that? Did you talk about it openly with each other, and how did were there days where you just didn't want to go and you just didn't want to get on that Zoom call?
Yeah. I mean, as you said, it's one of the things that kind of unfortunately you have to learn to do as an entrepreneur is compartmentalize. And if something can be weighing on you that's outside of your business, you kind of have to learn how to put it in one place in your mind and focus on things you have to focus, and then kind of give it attention when the time is right. Aside from everything that's going on in the world, just in life, that's kind of a skill set that many founders and entrepreneurs have learned that they have to develop. So that was kind of my approach to it. It's like, if I were to stop working every time a Black person was killed by the police, it would just be such a distraction. I would never be able to be successful. So that's kind of like personally, on a personal level, what I've had to do. But as far as the company goes, we try to be very sensitive to our employees and what they're going through. We communicated to them that as a company we stand on the side of Black Lives Matter, of Black Lives Mattering. Shouldn't even be a controversial statement, and that we really want to give our employees space to process, and we told everyone that they could take time off if they needed to, if they wanted to just, be with their emotions, or if they wanted to go protest, or if they wanted to do whatever they wanted to do. And some of them took us up on it. We also made a statement as a company, saying, our position, and we made some public donations just to some nonprofits. So as a company, those are the things that we felt was the right thing to do. And on an individual basis, as a Black man, yeah, it's very difficult. And on one side, you want to help, you want to do what you can to just kind of support the movement, but on the other hand, that one of the most beneficial things you can do is create a successful company, and be an example of what's possible, and hopefully make it easier for Black founders in the future to follow in your footsteps. So that's really, that's what I'm focused on.
So, Songe, with this latest funding round, tell me what your ambitions are. I mean, you talked about, I think in that 43 or 40 north, 42 north, 43 north, 43 north. And that, I think in that pitch competition, you talked about expanding the products, going deeper. Tell me about what that means to you. Like, because right now you're in barbershops. Do you imagine expanding to salons? Do you imagine being the Uber, like an Uber level product and app?
Yeah. So like one of the things that we've been good at, and that I think any entrepreneur needs to learn is the power of focus, being laser focused on your solutions and your customers, and not being distracted. So since inception, we've always had a lot of, mostly investors, but a lot of people ask, why don't you do salons and nails and spas and all the stuff that you could do? It's a bigger market, and it's been tempting to why not branch out and do that to get more customers.
Yeah,
but we keep reeling ourselves back and reminding ourselves that our competitive advantage is that we are so focused, that we are going deeper into this vertical and providing solutions that other companies, quite frankly, aren't interested in doing, because they are trying to service so many, horizontal, different verticals. So we're gonna stay on that trajectory, at least in the near future. We know how big this can get with just barbershops, because it is such an underserved market. We're already operational in the US, Canada, and the UK. So in just those three markets, Squire can become a multi-billion-dollar company. So we're going to stay on that path. And yeah, we're super excited about providing more value, offering more features that really speak to their needs. Yeah.